Good evening, all the VCV fans and LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I'm excited. This is the final chapter and probably the best chapter for life. If those of you who have been following Veterans Council Veterans, we have been, in honor of Black History Month, we have done a series, a weekly series. It's called Thank You for Your Service, Black Patriots. And we do this because we believe in, for two purposes we do this. One, we want the rest of the world out there to know that all races have contributed to the sacrifices and to protecting our freedoms and defending America. So that's one thing. And secondly, we want the people from who are African American descent to know that we also have something to be proud of as well. So the twofer that A, we're part of the fight, and two, we need to be proud of what's going on as well. So hey, how you doing? I'm Tony Williams. I'm the president and CEO for Veterans Counseling Veterans, and welcome to our last broadcast for this particular event, which I'm so honored to have a great guest. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna learn so much. But until I do that, I always got to do my intro. So good evening. Here we go. I know it's 7 o'clock at night on a Monday, but this is something that you have to listen to because you're going to hear some knowledge. You're going to hear about Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe, not just as a military, but also a family and a brother and an uncle, because we want to humanize. You know, one thing we want to make sure that's important is that those in the military who provide services, we're still human beings, and we have people who love them and care about it even when we leave. So I want to make sure we humanize that. So what I want to first do is give you a little bit of insight on exactly who Alwyn Cashe is.
A local man sacrificed his own safety to rescue 6 soldiers from a burning military vehicle. Officials say Oviedo native Alwyn Cashe was still on fire when he went back in to pull injured and unconscious men to safety. Now, the Washington Post reports 16 years after his death, the White House will award him with the Medal of Honor. He has already been awarded the Purple Heart, Silver Heart, and Bronze Star, but this would make him the first Black veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan to receive the Medal of Honor. News 6's Carolina Cardona spoke to his family and local lawmakers who have been pushing for this special acknowledgement.
So that's who Alwyn First Class Cashe is, who he has saved lives. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries. And this is something that we want to give honor to that Alwyn First Class Cashe, who's from Oviedo, Florida, not too far up north up there. And as an announcer mentioned, he's only the first African American during Iraq and Afghanistan, probably Desert Storm as well, that received the Medal of Honor. And I know that we say that, some people say, well, I don't see race, why is Black, whatever. Yeah, well, in this case here, it's important during Black History Month that people know that we all sacrificed and have died. Some of us have died in defending this great country and our rights as well. But before I do that, I want to kind of give you like kind of a road to how we got here to tonight on the 27th. This is a road how we got here. So we have our first interview with Army McNabe, a Marine who was awarded the Navy Cross. And one thing on Navy Cross is Aubrey is only the second African American to receive a Navy Cross. The other one is Dory Miller. We also had it was Colonel Chaplain Khalid Tabaz, the highest ranking military Muslim in the Army, who at CENTCOM. That was a very great, a good thing there as well. One we did add, we just kind of ad-lib real quick. You guys didn't know about it. We also had the VA press secretary, Terrence Hayes. This is like a kind of like a target opportunity that happened like right at the time. So we got a chance to talk to him. He is the first African-American VA press secretary. Finally, we're going to talk about Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe, who was awarded the Medal of Honor in December 2021. And we're going to do this in a special way. Before I do that, I want to talk about our sponsors. And our sponsors for this broadcast is going to be Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, Gamma Eta Sigma, Go Mob. Thank you for your sponsorship. The NAACP St. Pete Branch 5130. And of course, the Veterans Council and Veterans, who've also, thank you for your sponsorship to make sure this happened. We got to also thank our sponsors. When we do this event here, we're going to sit there in a couple areas. First, I want to bring up our guests up to the stage. Okay, we got a guest up to the stage here, and we will go to my right. You're gonna see how they all have a part in this. We have Command Sergeant Major retired Martin Celestine. We have Sergeant Protocast Alan Cashe's sister, Cassinell. We have Erwin Scott Jones, his niece, and retired Navy veteran of 30 years. And finally, we have my co-host. She just surprised us. My co-host. I want to have some comments from her so we hear that. We got say it again.
Master Gunnery Sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Roger that. That's the E9. That's when you get older, man, it's hard to get that stuff all imprinted in your brain. I know what a sergeant major is, but we're going to get her comments as well. And so how we're going to do this, we're going to go into a couple of segments, and each of them will chime in. The first one will be Sergeant First Class Alan Cashe, childhood and the family. We want to know kind of what was the foundation for Sergeant First Class Alan Cashe before he finally went to the military. And we're going to start off with his sister, Cassinell. Cassinell, give us some insight on who Alan Cashe was when he was a little boy in Florida.
Well, as many of you know, or as all of you, I hope, will learn, he was the last of the line. He was the baby of the bunch. There were 10 of us. Yes, 10. And we spanned a few generations. Is that right, Nikki? Because between our oldest sister, Mayetta, who is Nikki's mom, she is 10 years my senior. Then we have a sister Bernadine, 1 year my senior. And then there's myself and brother Carlos, followed by Yuli, followed by Yvonne, followed by Cedric, then followed by Andrea, and then Alwyn. And just to put it in perspective, I am 12 years Alwyn's senior.
Wow.
So right. We had a lot of stair steps in there, so to speak.
And you were saying, and I know Aaron probably mentioned as well, because when Aaron, I think you're older than Alan.
Yes, I am. I'm 1 year and 3 months older than. I was a year and 3 months older than him, and I'm his niece.
But keep in mind, he always made her call him uncle, even though she was older. He was very.
I just did it.
That uncle thing.
I just did it because I didn't want to beat him up.
Please, but he was a little scrawny kid from Oviedo, Florida. He was born in Sanford. Raised in Oviedo, graduated from Oviedo High School, where all of us, actually, all the brothers and sisters graduated from Oviedo High School. We have that in common. He went into the military in 88, right? I'm sorry, not 88. What am I saying? Yes, 88, right after he graduated high school. He chose the military on his own. I was off, doing my own thing by that time. All I heard was Al was going to the Army, and I was like, "What?" And it just kind of shocked us. I think he copied off of Nikki a little bit because by then she was already in the Navy, so maybe he got a little push in that direction from one of the cousins, one of the nieces that was close to him. But he was all about family. People say I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it, and I often say it. We were poor, but we didn't know it. We ate. We had a mom and dad. Well, my mom, because dad died when Al was very young, at the age of 6. So he doesn't have a solid memory of our father, but we do. We were his parents, I guess, his father, my brothers that went into the service, different branches of the service, none of them in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and things like that, were his mentors. And then we were as this generation would call it, a blended family, because my dad had been married before, and there were other brothers and sisters that were older than I. So in turn, they were older than Al, and they were, there for him. I cannot leave out my brother Tracy, because he was very helpful during the time after my dad died, and Al was very young, so. That's our family. We were raised basically by our mom. He was, in a way.
You say this is something that's interesting too. Is that you had said who there was more? Some of his other brothers were also in the military.
My brother Carlos was Navy. My brother Curtis was Air Force.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they are older than he. Well, since he's the baby, everybody's older than him. But yes.
Mm-hmm. And somehow you say this, it was Aaron that there was a reason why you think that he may have joined the military.
Well, they were closer, because even Carlos, if I'm 10 years or 12 years older than Al, Carlos is 11, was it 11 years older? And then Yuli would be 10 years older. So we had a generation gap in there. His closest friends were his, Ann, her name's Andrea, but we call her Ann. My brother Jairus, who said there would be Nikki, because they were only a year apart. They were basically raised as brothers and sisters, not niece and nephew, because there was only a year between them. So his playmates, his nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters were, his biggest influence.
Right. Now,
and Tony, she keeps calling me Nikki because that's what I go by with the family, but my government name is Aaron.
Right.
Yeah,
the retirement check comes in Aaron, but she's Nikki to me.
we had talked a little bit in the green room, and she's like, "You better not mess her name up." So now Nikki is Nick. Do you mind? We just call you Nikki now, okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, good. All right, it's better than the other one. So yeah, I'm sorry. Can I cut that? Okay. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is every segment. I'm going to have a little. We're going to talk about our sponsors real quick. So we're going to talk about our sponsor. Then we're going to go to the military life. Is that okay with you guys?
That's fine.
Roger that. Okay. Okay. So thank you for one of our sponsors, Phi Beta Sigma Inc. Gamma Eta Sigma, which is the Tampa chapter. Thank you for your sponsors. We believe in service and community, and also, and this is one of the things we think that is very important. I am the chair for the military chair committee, and we think it's important that we highlight the importance of military service, both the military and veteran family. So thank you very much for Sigmas out there. And too bad for the Megas and all the Kappas, whatever. This is my show. Back. Now we're going to sit there and we're going to shift to military. Now with this military life, we got at least three. And just for 1 second, we're going to, Casanova can just take a little bit step back. But we're going to talk about, we got military people. Everybody here is military. I want to get a sense of, I want to start with Martin, because Martin, there's a history between Martin and Castle anyway. We'll start with Martin. And then what I would like to do is, Aaron, being you're 30 years you were in the Navy, all that reserve and stuff?
I did 3 years active duty, almost 3 years active duty.
But all together with reserves. And then Cassandra, we have some comment about that, because we want to make sure that people understand what this really means. And if I get anybody in the LinkedIn or Facebook, you want to say something, please. This is the time to say something. But Martin, set us off.
Hey, well, Tony and Kaz and Aaron, first off, I really got to thank you all for doing this, because it's an absolute honor and a privilege to help Al's legacy live on. We all understood his accomplishment and his acts of valor, but I think it's extremely important in today's society that we could educate the young folks to see that there are people that do look like myself and you, Tony, that have served in combat, have served honorably, some of us that have made the ultimate sacrifice. So I'm doing this for Black History Month. It really touches a spot for me, as I knew Al on a personal note. A constant professional. He really bought into the profession of arms. So sometimes you see a young men and women, they go off and they serve, or they go to basic training, and that transformation that happens through the soldier maturization process, you don't see it as a service member, but as a civilian, you can absolutely see the change. So us doing this tonight really speaks volume to Al representing a lot of us as a hero. I personally know he would not want to be called a hero, but his sacrifices for a lot of men and women, especially the men of the 3rd Infantry Division, a unit that I served in, it just speaks volume. I think a lot of that says a lot about his upbringing with his family and how they persevered after he passed, but just really staying true to the course. So it's an absolute honor tonight.
Okay, and you guys can chime in as well. I mean, I know that we always hear that I don't see color, I just see green. And in one form, that's true. When we're out there fighting and all that kind of stuff, we don't sit there and say, "Who the black person," and go save them or her. But the after effects, you know, we all need to be proud to understand that we all sacrificed, and some of us lost our lives defending this country. So that's the thing I just want to really promote as well. What do you think about that, Cassandra?
I absolutely agree. Martin, Ms. Casino, Ms. Nikki, it's an absolute honor to even be on here, even though it's by Zoom. I even told Tony, I was like, I don't know how you come up with these, and you pick the cream of the crop to do these presentations. And just with Alwyn's legacy still living on through you all, it means so much. He was in the Army serving before I even graduated high school. So when I look at the 1988, I went in 1991, right after high school. So I can relate to that. That was his calling. And at that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just didn't want to go to school. So I jumped into going into the Marine Corps, but I'm third generation Marine. But when I'm hearing that your family was already serving, so he already had examples already in front of him. And I can relate to that. I'm just like, I'm in awe over here. Like my heart is racing. It is such an honor to just be on here. Because when we serve, regardless of what branch, our families serve with us. They are the foundation. That's what keeps us going. We may not speak those very words, but in the back of our head, we have to have something to reach back to. And to God be the glory, guiding our footsteps through the journey, especially as African Americans. So I know everyone's journey in this, whether it was Tony or Martin, serving in the military. I don't care what branch you're in. It's a challenge, and you don't come out the same. And for him to even have the courage of what he did is phenomenal. I'm just ecstatic to the moon to be on here and to say thank you for your service as well, and to carry on his legacy.
Okay, and Nikki, now I do want to say about the reason why I got these all-star people on is because God. Okay, it ain't Tony. I don't know anybody. This is all God, and so I'm glad to be here. So, Nikki, what do you got to say? You have long years in the Navy and stuff.
Well, if he would have really listened to me, he would have joined the Navy. I'm just going to put it out there because, of course, everybody think their branch is the best branch. When I heard that he had went into the Army, I said, "Ooh, I couldn't do that." I'm just going to be honest. And I didn't think he would have did that either, because he was kind of small at that time. He did grow into his body once he joined the military. And then now when I hear people speak of his actions and how he was such a great role model to his soldiers and how he took care of them during his drill sergeant days, I'm like, is that the same guy that I grew up with? Because I'll tell you, only thing Al wanted to do when we were younger was hunt, fish,
yes,
pull practical jokes on other family members, because we did that a lot. Mm-hmm. And when it came down to it, sometimes, we used to tussle. I used to let him win, though. Sometimes.
Hey, Martin, I know you're up there now at the infantry museum in Columbus. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Tony, just to tap on some things that was mentioned. So the military has always championed inclusion and diversity. So when you hear people talk about not seeing a certain color, race, or creed, I think valor and heroism, not to diminish anything that anyone has done, It takes a special type of person, right, to pull through in the clutch when it counts. I, a 30-year infantryman, former airborne ranger guy, I don't know if I could have accomplished those feats that Al did. So just to get it in anybody's mind, small in stature, but Cashe was a fierce leader, extremely physically fit and passionate. So you hear a lot of people talk about once a Marine, always a Marine. But the infantry is made up of 17%. Well, the Army is made up of 17% of the Army is the infantry. And Cashe was fierce and tough enough to serve in the infantry. You heard people talk about him being a drill sergeant, but to be a platoon sergeant in combat, in charge of a Bradley unit, where you have 40 soldiers, 4 Bradley fighting vehicles, and in the conditions that he patrolled in, on a patrol that he didn't have to go, right? That he strapped up and he went out there. So just to hear his sister and the good Sergeant Major over here give him his just due, it really touches me. I know we've honored Al in the Infantry Museum. His spouse was graceful enough to gift the Medal of Honor, the actual medal, at the National Infantry Museum, where thousands of soldiers come through. As part of their program of instruction, they get a chance to come to the museum and they actually get to learn about a real life hero, right? Somebody that took the same steps that they took while he served as a drill sergeant in 254. So definitely leading by example, and example for others to follow.
That's true. That's true.
You said
I've
30.
heard so many stories from, and let me piggyback on what Martin said, Celestine said. The third ID has been phenomenal in this push to get the Medal of Honor. They were there every step of the way. And I say that everybody says, well, they were supposed to be. No, they didn't have to be. I mean, you've got people like Martin, as I said, he was my mom's, they call it liaison, right? At the funeral. We met him in 2005. I'd heard of him before that, but since 2005, he's stuck and stayed. I met then Lieutenant Colonel Brito, now General Brito, in 2005. They stuck and stayed. You know, my family has been behind me, and I can honestly say I'm glad that Nikki's here because she's been one of the ones that's been, Auntie, come on, you don't have to do this, but okay, if I got you. If you going, I'm gonna ride with you. I got you. You know, she's been there, and so everybody, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. It was a slow process. Just to let you know, it took 16 years from the time he passed to the time he was awarded the medal. And I say awarded the medal because a young lady today said he won the medal. You don't win the Medal of Honor. Right. You earn the medal. It was awarded to him posthumously, to his family. And I was quite glad because I promised my mom, I said, if I don't, we're going to do this unless I don't draw breath. So I was very happy to meet President Biden at the White House with my sister-in-law. It was so many of us. I mean, the third ID showed up in droves. My family was there. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Even though it was the first ceremony, it was a 3-person ceremony. So we got to meet the family of another Medal of Honor recipient. Plus, we got to meet a living Medal of Honor recipient. And Tony, what you said about Al being the recipient of the Medal of Honor, the first one in Iraq, let me give you a little history. And it's shameful on our nation, but Al is the first African-American to be awarded the Medal of Honor since Vietnam. And Vietnam ended in 1975, 5 years before he was born. So it's
well, Kaz, if I could jump in.
Yes.
So I think it's having people to keep the integrity of that program, right? Because oftentimes someone's the things that you do or you accomplish sometimes goes unnoticed or unseen. But there were a lot of people that stayed in the fight. Well, first it started with you guys, the internal family, and then it shifted to people like Colonel Jimmy Hathaway, now General
Yes,
Brito, the commander, and that entire group. So they actually really pushed towards the integrity of the program, because as you can see, Al was awarded the actual Silver Star, which said that what he has done had enough weight for him to be awarded the actual Medal of Honor. When you take a look at all the different citations and you see and you hear the stories of what he has done, I mean, it's like a real life Rocky movie, right? The only thing that
exactly.
happened in this is that Al didn't make it home. So he truly did make that ultimate sacrifice. He really embodied the soldier creed. He was not going to leave a fallen soldier behind, at the risk of his own life. So, and I know he lived that day in and day out. So
That's true.
I want to and we're going to talk about that the journey to the Medal of Honor in about our next segment. I was talking to Cassandra earlier, and we was talking about how we don't know until we're there, right? We don't know what we're going to do until we're there, and that's what what Sergeant Major Salentin is talking about, is that something we don't know until we get in that situation. We don't know if we're going to run, hide, or act. You don't
Right.
know until it happens there.
Exactly.
What I want to get to now is I want to get to the journey. We'll have a little quick snippet on with you mentioned General Brito, and we'll talk about it as well. But let's first, we're going to go to the journey to the Medal of Honor. Before we go to the journey of Medal of Honor, I want to then thank one of our sponsors, St. Pete and NWCP here in St. Pete. We're about, especially back in the during the World War II. The NWCP played a critical role during Jim Crow, because a lot of African American veterans were finding themselves in trouble and that kind of stuff. Maybe not because there's something wrong, but because we're black. So the NAACP definitely has that. And what's even newer now, the NAACP had just stood up their National Armed Services and Veteran Affairs Committee chair. You hear about that as well. And also this year is when the act was signed that integrated the Army and the military with African Americans. So NAACP definitely played a role back then, and we hope they'll play a role in the future. Now let's get back to the journey. Like this shows somebody had a big long paragraph here. Oh, Joey Comley, I don't know if anybody knows him, but he had a comment here. So we're gonna get to the journey. The journey. So what we're gonna talk about the journey. We're gonna first start with General Brito. For those of us who don't know, at that time, General Brito was battalion commander of Alwyn, and now he's a 4-star general. He's a trade-out commander. And we'll try to get a glimpse of it. And Sergeant Major Excellency was talking about how the integrity piece, and that's what he mentioned about. So we're gonna listen to this video, about 8 minutes. So just I'll take you guys off camera, and then we'll just listen to this 8-minute stint that one I had with General Brito.
Okay, sir. I'm waiting for that thing. Yeah, so I'm here now with as part of honoring Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe, who was awarded the Medal of Honor. I'm here right now having a nice interview with one of the main reasons why I had it, which is General Gary Brito, now 4-star, but at the time when Alwyn Cashe did his event, he was a battalion commander, and we're just here get some insight on what did it take for him to make this happen. That's the thing, we don't know the behind the scenes, that he can kind of give us some insight on what it took for him to get to make sure that Alwyn Cashe got the award he deserved. So I want to introduce to you General Gary Brito, who's a trade-out commander, but also at the time for Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe, he was the battalion commander. Sir, great having you on here.
Hey, thanks, Tony, for the opportunity to talk about a great soldier and a unit that he served in as well. As mentioned, I had the honor of being the Dragon 6, the battalion commander of 115 Infantry and OIF 3, I think it was at the time. And of course, this incident where Sergeant First Class Cashe had a very bad IED accident, bottom line, very bad. It wasn't even an accident, just a very bad IED in October 05. And a couple of weeks later, obviously succumbed to his wounds. Now, to take you back in history a little bit, I did have the honor of being in the actual ceremony when his family was presented, when President Biden presented the Medal of Honor to his family, 16 December last year. That was about the end of a 12-plus year journey of working to get the Medal of Honor completed. Now, I will say, as you know, he was initially awarded the Silver Star after the incident in Iraq, a few weeks after it occurred. And quite frankly, we were still a unit heavy in contact, in combat still, even during the few weeks that he and the other soldiers passed. And then we're still waiting to deploy. We still had some fight going on. It took a little while for all of this to soak in. One, what he did, the magnitude of what he did, getting witness statements together, the whole bit, to make the decision, which was a couple of years later, quite frankly, to pursue the Medal of Honor for a very deserving soldier, non-commissioned officer, and what he did at that moment. And I won't go into the details of the award and what was in the citation. That's very much public knowledge at this point. Now, it took a lot longer than I wanted, only because, and I fully own that, still on active duty, still PCSing, still serving, and the years just went on. I can say that, Tony, the process for the Medal of Honor is very prestigious, one of which has some processes and steps that need to be followed, both in military approval, which is a whole separate approval process, and of course, congressional support. Now, it took a long time. One, I had to learn about it. I just quite frankly didn't know some of the procedures that had to be followed. And the integrity of this award is one that simply cannot be compromised because, as you know, it's one of the nation's highest honors. So the years went on, to include having to find those that could provide valid witness statements, to include some of the timelines that we had to adhere to, which is all very important because I mentioned the integrity of the award, and just the tyranny of time. The battalion deactivated, records had to be found, soldiers PCS, some passed, of course, some retired. I'm probably one of the few that are still in that was serving with the battalion at that time, and just putting all that together. Had lots of great support from soldiers that are serving still, some that are retired now, congressional liaisons, which assisted in learning the processes, learning what had to be done, and helping work the packet through the process. And of course, the Army holds its own independent awards board. And then I was as pleased with everybody to see that it was finally approved. Now, there were a couple disapprovals along the process, and I owned it just to ensure that I got it right. And there's no free gifts with this. We had to ensure that all the witness statements were indeed valid ones, and it validated his heroic actions that evening. And of course, throughout those 12 years, to include now, maintained a friendship with his wife and his sisters and family, wife down in Georgia and family in Fort Benning. Family in Florida. And to kind of sum it up, Tony, that's about it. So I believed in the award, and that he owned this award, earned this award, had great support. I learned a lot about the process and was committed to the very end. And if the very end, if it ended up being no, disapproved, or not going to be upgraded, we gave it our very best. And I just wanted to ensure that I gave my very best before it was either yes or no. And thanks to lots of people, to include him being Sergeant First Class Cashe, all the deceased, it was approved. And we just followed the process. And again, was honored to be part of the ceremony along with his family and many of those who served with him, veterans, some of which are out of the Army now, brought me to tears in the ceremony the day of, and the follow-on one we had the day after up in Washington, D.C.
Wow, so that is.
There we had it. I just wanted to watch that and listen to that. And now that, and those of us in the military, we understand when he started talking about all those processes and getting it right and all other kind of stuff there. So I wanted to talk about, unpack that, because some people think that it took long because, he was black and that kind of stuff, or, I don't know that, but I do know, talking to General Brito, the process. And I really would like the Cashe and all, because clearly, and then she can talk about some people that she can thank, because we don't see all the people that were involved in getting this award finally. And I know he mentioned, we are in the correction. It wasn't last December, but 2 Decembers ago where he was awarded the Medal of Honor. But Castle, can you kind of walk that to us? And then please, if you have something to add, anyone on this panel, just add so so we can bring some context to it. But Castle, kind of walk this like. How did
All right, I'm going to give you the civilian perspective, the sister perspective. I thought it should have been done the next day. Okay. With that said, okay, because I was like, surely if I've got enough sense that what I'm reading and what I've been told, then the powers that be should have the same perspective. But thanks to people like, and I go by last names, okay, General Brito, Martin Celestine, Jimmy Hathaway, I got educated, and I really got educated because you have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. I don't know how many times Martin told me, Cass, slow down. It's a process. Cass, hold on. Don't rush it. It's a process. Then they'd team up on me. I'd be talking to him on the telephone and say it's a process, and I'd be like, okay. Then Jimmy Hathaway would call me, and he'd be like, don't get mad. Don't say this. Don't do that. So they really walked me through the process because I didn't understand it because, again, civilian, sister, wanted it yesterday, wanted it in 2005, wanted it more after it seemed like once we got the congressional support, and this goes from the third ID, I never knew there was a time frame that the medal had to be awarded. I'm like, what? We didn't have congressional support. Then it took a novice Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy, which I can never say enough about. I'd vote for her again tomorrow if I could, because when she picked up the ball, she called me out of the blue. You have to remember that the third ID is still pushing me. I got Martin and Hathaway and Ryan and Corey West and all these guys. They're pushing me because they were with him. They knew. I don't know why today they call him Big Cash, but they knew Big Cash. Okay. They knew him and what he did. I was getting disappointed because I was trying to contact, and I won't to not dim her light. I won't say anything about the ones that didn't help because I want the light to shine on Stephanie Murphy. Okay. So a novice Congresswoman out of Orlando calls me on the phone one day, and I'm like, hello. And hi, this is Congresswoman Murphy's office. Is this Cash White? And I was like, everybody knows I'm kind of flippant. I was like, yeah, this is she. Why does the Congresswoman want me? And they were like, she's the Congresswoman out of Orlando. I'm like, okay, well, I'm at work, and they're calling me on my cell phone. Number one, I'm like, how did the Congresswoman get my number? But anyway, that was because she had tracked me down through a reporter who had done a story on Al, and he had shared my number with her. But of course, I didn't know that. And she got on the phone and she told me what had to happen, that they had to introduce a bill into the Florida House, the Florida Senate, that said it was okay to look at this and award this medal late. And I was like, what? Gary had told me this, Brito. Martin had gave me part of it, but to hear it from the actual congressperson that this really was, that had to be done, I was like, but I don't understand. You missed the time frame, Miss White. But now we've got to go at this differently. We can't attack this head on. And I'm one of these people, I'm a fixer. So I wanted to attack it head on. But I had to learn, again, everything has a process. So as General Brito just said, as Martin has alluded to, there's a process for the military, and you're going through this process, A, B, C, D, E. But then there's a process over here with Congress. You got to go through A, B, C, D, E. And A doesn't correlate with A over here. You may be on F over here, but you're still back here on B. And all these things got to go together. So then Congresswoman Murphy and General Brito got together, and things started kind of like being an accordion. They started meshing together. First we were okay it took over a year. Wasn't it over a year, Martin, for the bill to pass?
It was.
It was over a year for the bill to pass. We actually got a building named in his honor before the bill passed. Okay. And Congresswoman Murphy came, she spearheaded that event also, a federal building, the post office in our hometown of Oviedo. That was spearheaded. We got that done. And then one reporter say, well, isn't this enough? And, you know, that's when Nikki had to come in, and she just kind of walked me away because she saw my face. No, this is not enough. This is not what we're going for. We are going to have his Silver Star upgraded to the Medal of Honor, because by now I've read the packets. I've talked to Gary Mills, one of the survivors. I've talked to Douglas George, one of the survivors. I'd actually talked to another one of the survivors before he passed in 2016. So it was a long process. I go from 2005, the time he passed, till the medal was awarded. That's where you hear the discrepancy between General Brito and I. They go from 2007, Martin, 8, when it first started getting momentum. But see, being the sister, I wanted it in 2005. He got the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, and the Silver Star in 2005. Why didn't they walk into Brooke Army Medical Center while he was still there and award the Medal of Honor? See, so that's one thing I can say. He didn't make it home, but he made it here. He made it back to the States. And I have to I'm thankful for that, because we, the family, got to go to Brooke Army Medical Center, and we spent from the 20th of October to the day he passed, the 8th of November. I was there. I was there at Brooke Army Medical Center. So in a lot of respects, I had it better than a lot of people, because I got to touch him. I got to hold him. I got to tell him some of the things that I may not have told him had he not made it back from Iraq. So I was there. He was injured on the 17th of October. I flew into Brooke Army Medical Center with my mom and my sister-in-law on October 20th. So I was there. The other family got there about the day of the night of the 7th, but I was there from the 20th until he passed. So,
thank you for that. And I mean, I've learned so much. I hope people who are listening learn a lot more about what the Medal of Honor and the family is going through, the different. And I was just kind of chuckling because, you know, as Martin had to keep calming you down and pulling you back, whatever. Do you remember, do you remember what was going on, Martin, when you did that?
Yeah, well, you know, so Tony, you could tell by the passion in Casino's voice, and you know, I know Aaron is not saying much, but when you know, the fact of what Al did, you could see where that passion comes from. When you can't fight for yourself no longer, which at the time he couldn't, he had a supporting cast back here that was fighting for him. So it wasn't just his military family, but his personal family. So I had a personal relationship with Cashe, because I too was the platoon sergeant of that platoon before I moved to Orlando to teach ROTC. So it was such a surreal moment, because it could be you, right? You say it could have been you, meaning in a position to where you lost your life and you can no longer be with your family. So receiving him on the ramp in Orlando just said something to my soul, seeing the support that he got from his family. So along the way, there were a lot of things that were done to honor him. But to get to this point where he's honored with the nation's highest award really speaks volume to how far we have come, right? How much we have evolved. Because, hey, there was a time when we accomplished great feats in battle and we weren't recognized for it. So collectively, that diversity, that inclusion, that thing you hear people talking about, I keep saying the Army has always been on the cutting edge of change. And where in the civilian sector you might not see it, in the military, I think it has always been there. Not perfect, but it has always been there. So to the family, the reason we're here today is because of the fight, is because of the courage and the resiliency that you guys have displayed. You know, I had the opportunity to meet your mom, and I remember the look in her face when we went to the burial ground. She was just happy that she had her baby, that she could lay him to rest. So, Kaz, you mentioned that there are a lot of people where the soldiers don't come home, right? Meaning, yes, we get the remains, but they don't come home and they don't get a home going. So, all those things makes this even more special. Also, there are a lot of soldiers that believed in Alwyn Cashe. There are a lot of soldiers that would have followed him through a fire. That's what he did. He went back in the fire. He pulled him out. He actually saved the guy at the time that was my best friend, the number 2,000 soldier that died, right? Alexander, George T. Alexander, personal friends of mine. I kept him in the Army. So there's just a tie to this whole thing and a connection that just speaks to where we are today as a society. And we just never leave our own behind. So I'm just happy to be a part of this.
Wow, that is, I tell you, anything to add there, Cassandra? Let's keep looking at
I'm just in awe to hear the story, you know, behind the scenes, because these type of stories we don't get to hear. We just look at what's been written for as history, but you never get the behind the scenes story to really get the full picture. And I'm like the student, or part of the audience, because it's like you want to read a book now. Just hearing what you all have shared here, and I know there is a plethora of other stuff that you all went through, but just feeling the passion that the family kept pushing forward to get what he earned.
Yeah, it's important. And I want to talk when we'll come back. We want to talk about our last sponsor. Look at my find it here. Veterans Council of Veterans. Veterans Council of Veterans. I am the president and CEO. And one of the things we do, we believe in walking, not just talking when it comes to DEI. A lot of people all of a sudden got, found DEI spirit, but they just talk. Veterans Council Veteran, we actually walk. So you'll see things like this, not just in Black History Month. You'll see it for next month. We'll have Women History Month. You may get a little surprises on that. We'll also be for the Hispanic and LGBTQ. So Veterans Council Veterans, we just don't talk about DEI. We actually walk the DEI. So now with saying that, I want to sit there, and it's so funny because Nikki. Okay, I gotta get. Nikki's actually a valuable volunteer for Veterans Council Veterans. She came when we had a military sexual trauma conference, and she called me and she says, Tony, because I always, whenever I went to events, she said, I want to come in, I want to volunteer. So she did. She came down, got her hands dirty and stuff, and she's been with us ever since. So I just I'm very proud. Every time I introduce Nikki, I always say, oh yes, her uncle. So I just want to bring it up. Her uncle is the Medal of Honor. It doesn't matter who I talk to. So thank you, Nikki, for that and being part of Veterans Council and Veterans. I want to get this opportunity to get a chance to go around before we end this conversation. And we heard so much, and I definitely well, hopefully later on we'll hear more insight. But I wanted to provide insight from the families. I wanted to humanize Alwyn. He's a brother. He's an uncle. He's a father. I know you got children out there, and I want to make sure that they see that this affects us and continues to affect us even after that date. And this is our way of trying to finally continue that. So let's go around the horn, and before we finish, let's go any last words. I'll end it with Cashe, but I'll start off with Nikki. Then we'll go to Martin for the last words.
Well, Tony, I thank you for doing this. And Tony knows that I'm an introvert, so to get me to do this, yeah, he had to bribe me. But I thank you for doing this, and again, Alwyn was my uncle. I admire what he did. Yes, I feel like he earned this. He did not win it, as Castle has said. I wish my grandmother would have lived long enough to see him receive, for the medal to be awarded. But to me, he'll always be Al, and I think people like Martin Celestine for being there, being the rock, keeping Casanel under control, because sometimes I couldn't do that. I greatly thank General Brittle and others that will remain, their names have been mentioned, and those that haven't been mentioned, charge it to the heart. But yes, that was my uncle, and I loved him. I loved him dearly.
Thanks, Nikki. And I'm an introvert as well. So as soon as I finish this thing here, I'm going to go into a little bubble, cuddle like that, and just relax. Cool. I do want to say that one of the people that was, I guess, was help with the naming of the 81st Training Division was Ali Broswell, who just happens to be the National Military Veterans Chair for Gamma Eta Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma. Go Bob! So I want to make sure I bring. Got to plug in there. Got to plug in there. He also was a part of it. But finally, now I want to get to Martin. And I was joking when I was talking to Martin, and I was like, he was like saying, he mentioned something about black. And I says, "You're black?" Because you hear Martin on the phone, he sound like, I don't know, he sound like Spanish or whatever. And he said, you go see my picture, you'll see. So, but anyway, but again, I say that in jest again, because this is Black History Month. At the end of the day, we all one team, one fight. But Martin, please, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so my last thoughts is whether you support a conflict or not, there are some people that really lay everything on the line so that we can enjoy the freedom and democracy that we enjoy today. And at the end of the day, Al left his kids back here. They're the one left without a dad, right? So we have the sisters that don't have their baby brother, the nieces that don't have an uncle. So the sacrifice he made is so that we can live in this country and we can enjoy what we call the American dream. Some people might argue and say, well, there's no American dream, but this is really the American dream because it's people for us, by us, that looks like us, right? That gave everything so that we could continue to do what we do. So at the National Infantry Museum, we are going to continue to honor Alwyn Cashe's legacy. I will tell the story to any and everybody I meet, because this is not like some stories you see where it's fictional. This is not a movie. This was a real live living being from Oviedo, Florida, that had family, and I heard it alluded to earlier, that loved to hunt, that loved to fish. He still did those things in the military, but he was a fierce leader. He bought into the profession of arms. He really believed in the Army values, and he gave everything for his guys, even sacrificing himself, and left his family behind. So Tony and the crew, I really appreciate you doing this. It just says that service is not in vain, right? And that's what it boils down to. This service was not in vain.
Thanks very much, Sergeant Major. And I just got a comment. I see a comment with Yuri, and he put the word casa, and the casa don't mean your house. In this case here, it is a civilian assistant to the Secretary of the Army, and that's Ali Browser. He's a civilian assistant to the Secretary of the Army. So just want to make sure people would see that saying his casa Broswell. But that's what that casa means. Finally, and then we'll close it up after Casanel. Casanel, your last thoughts, please.
Well, I just want to agree with what Martin and my niece Nikki said. People in the military have fought since the inception of this country for our freedom. So don't ever let anyone say, oh, freedom is free. It's not, because my family and others have paid the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. Freedom is not free. So don't let anyone ever tell you, oh, I could do this because freedom is free. No, somebody put on a uniform and fought so that you can have the freedom to say or do what it is that you're doing. Always remember that. Yes, I want you to learn my brother's story. I want you to learn his legacy, because he should not have been the first. And let me correct myself. I said that Vietnam ended 5 years after he was born. I meant to say Vietnam ended 5 years before he was born. So to think that he is the first African American since Vietnam and all this time, that's a mark on our country. But it's a mark that can be corrected, because they don't see color. I've learned that. I've been embraced by the third ID. They have supported me. I thank them for that. I thank Congresswoman Murphy and everybody that added a little piece to this. It is my desire for his legacy to live on through a foundation that I'm in the process of setting up. You'll hear more about it. Let me make a slight plug. That's the shirt that I have on. This shirt funds the foundation. It's produced through a company called Triple Nickel. They've been very generous to me. So I want you to learn his story. Because I won't take anything from any African American before him, because we do have history.
Yes.
But you don't have to look back to Frederick Douglass to know your history. You've got heroes here now that you can look at. Thank a serviceman. And when Martin said his guys, don't take it literally. When Al said his guys, he meant men and women. He took care of his guys. That was everybody, not gender specific, gender together. So thank a serviceman for what they did. Hey, buy them a Frosty from Wendy's, if that's all you can do. But just thank one of them, because when you put on that uniform, whether it be peacetime or wartime, you have taken an oath to support this country. And that's what they do. That's what you guys did. And I thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the plug. And I do know some of the guys up there in Triple Nickel, Chris McPhee and Cortez and a couple of those guys there. So we'll readdress that. We'll try to help you out as well when it comes to the foundation. Finally, I want to sit there and have a last with Cassandra, because she is the outside looking in. I wanted to get her perspective on that while she's here. What do you think, Cassandra?
What I think? Well, I just want to say thank you for your service to the Cashe family that's on here, Nikki, Cassino, Martin, Tony, and all of those that have supported during this whole journey. And I know it's still continuing. And to the Cashe family, his legacy lives on. And it's not just you all. We got it. We got it. We have the torch. We're going to continue to run with it. And just like you said, we have history. And apart from this, I'm a member of the National Marfa Point Marine Association, Chapter 29. They're in Jacksonville. And real quick, because Tony didn't know I was going to throw this in there. Me being a third generation Marine, I didn't know that my grandfather was one of the first Black Marines to serve in the Marine Corps from 1942 to 49. That's history that is not even known. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to get the word out there so that they can get their gold congressional medal. So I can relate to what you are saying, Ms. Casino. I can relate to that. This is phenomenal. And our young people, these are the stories that they need to hear.
Yes. And know that if there's anything I can do to help, count me in.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Blessings to all of you on here. And again, to the support, they're not on this call right now, but it wouldn't have happened without the passion and people having the drive to continue to push forward to see it through.
Right.
Well, thank you. So here we go. We're at the end of this. And I hope that you guys, people who listen and watch, I hope you learned a lot. You learned that first of all, everybody in this country has contributed. I don't care what race, gender, or sexual orientation, you contributed to this country and the sacrifices. You learned some insight that you did not heard before about what it takes, about the family and all the people, the pieces it takes to become this Medal of Honor. And it's not given. Okay, I don't care who's out there. Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe earned that award and he paid with his life. So to say anything other than that is an insult to everybody who's military soldier, airman. It's insult. So he earned that award that he should have gotten. So, whew. Okay, so this finally ends Veterans Council Veterans and in support to the Black History Month, where we did talk about to Aubrey McDade. Thank you, Aubrey McDade, for being on here. For Colonel Khalid Chabaz, thank you, sir, for being on here. To Terrence Hayes, thank you also for being here on our show. And last but not least, to the families of Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe, with Casino and Aaron, who we call Nikki now. I'm going to start calling her Nikki. And also Sergeant Major Martin Calsing. So this is it, guys. Thank you very much for taking the time out on Monday, 7 o'clock to hear this show and learn something. Please share it. You'll see other renditions. You can see it on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube if you want to see on YouTube. If you're any of my friends, you'll see me on the Facebook, whatever, and also here on LinkedIn. We got some more stuff coming for you in March, so be prepared to be educated on insights of veterans and their families. Until then, this is Tony Williams from Veterans Council of Veterans. Outro.